Hi friends, it's Miss Kendra. Today we're going to be reading more of my 5-minute stories. Today we're going to be reading Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Are you guys ready to get started? Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Goldilocks who had beautiful golden hair. She lived in a pretty house right at the edge of the forest. Each morning she liked to play outside before breakfast, gathering flowers and looking at the animals who lived in the trees. One day she strayed farther than usual. She skipped happily along the forest path, chasing butterflies until she was far from home and very hungry. Just as she was thinking it would take a long time to walk back for breakfast, a delicious smell wafted through the woods. She followed it all the way to a little cottage. "I wonder who lives here," Goldilocks said to herself. "Perhaps they would share their breakfast with me." She knocked on the door, but there was no answer. As Goldilocks pushed away on the door, it swung open. The house inside was cozy and inviting. Even though she knew she shouldn't, Goldilocks stepped inside. The delicious smell was coming from 3 bowls of steaming porridge on the table. There was a great big bowl, a middle-sized bowl, and a teeny tiny bowl. Goldilocks was so hungry that even though she knew she shouldn't, she tasted the porridge in the biggest bowl. "Ew," she cried, "this porridge is too hot." Next, she tasted the porridge in the middle-sized bowl. "Yuck," she said, "this porridge is far too cold." So finally she tried the porridge in the teeny tiny bowl. "Yum." Goldilocks said, "This porridge is just right," and she ate it all up. With her tummy nice and full, Goldilocks decided to rest before she set out for home. She looked around the room for somewhere to sit. There were 3 chairs, a great big chair, a middle-sized chair, and a teeny tiny chair. She climbed onto the great big chair, and "This chair is far too high," she said. Next she tried the middle-sized chair, but she sank deep into the cushions. "No," she said, "this chair is far too squishy." So she sat on the teeny tiny chair. "This chair is just right," she said, settling down. But Goldilocks was very full of porridge and too heavy for the teeny tiny chair. It squeaked and creaked, it creaked and cracked, then crash. It broke into teeny tiny pieces and Goldilocks fell to the floor. "Well, that wasn't a very good chair," she said grumpily. Then, even though she knew she shouldn't, she went to look upstairs. In the bedroom, there were 3 beds, a great big bed, a middle-sized bed, and a teeny tiny bed. She tried to lie down on the great big bed, but it wasn't at all comfy. "This bed is too hard and lumpy," she grumbled. Then Goldilocks lay down on the middle-sized bed, but that was no better. "This bed is too soft and squishy," she mumbled. And so at last she snuggled down in the teeny tiny bed. "This is just the right bed," she said, and she fell fast asleep. Now, whenever there is a house with porridge and chairs and beds, there is usually someone who lives there. And that was true of this house. 3 big brown bears lived there, a great big daddy bear, a middle-sized mommy bear, and a teeny tiny baby bear. The 3 bears had made their porridge and gone out for a walk in the woods while it cooled down. At last they went home for their breakfast. "Why is the door open?" Daddy Bear said, in his deep, gruff voice. "Why are there footprints on the floor?" Mommy Bear said in her soft low voice. Baby Bear said nothing. They went over to the table, and Daddy Bear looked in his bowl. "Someone's been eating my porridge," he growled. Mommy Bear looked in her bowl. "Someone's been eating my porridge," she exclaimed. Baby Bear looked in his bowl. "Someone's been eating my porridge and they've eaten it all up," he cried in his teeny tiny voice. Daddy Bear stomped over to his chair. "Someone's been sitting in my chair," he growled. "There's a hair on it." "Someone's been sitting in my chair," Mommy Bear exclaimed. "The cushions are all squashed." Baby Bear looked at his chair. "Someone's been sitting in my chair," he cried, "and they've broken it into pieces." "Let's get to the bottom of this," Daddy Bear growled, and they padded upstairs to the bedroom. Daddy Bear saw the rumpled covers on his bed. "Someone's been sleeping in my bed," he grumbled. Mommy Bear saw the jumbled pillows on her bed. "Someone's been sleeping in my bed," she said. Baby Bear padded up to his bed. "Someone's been sleeping in my bed, and they're still there," he cried. The 3 bears crowded around the sleeping girl. Baby Bear reached out a fuzzy paw to touch her golden curls. Goldilocks opened her eyes. Imagine her surprise when she saw 3 bears peering down at her. She leaped out of the bed, ran down the stairs, through the door, along the path, and all the way home, and she never visited the house of the 3 bears ever again. The end. That was a cute little story. Next story I have is called Puss in Boots. There was once an old miller who had 3 sons. When the miller died, he left the mill to his oldest son. The middle son was given the donkeys. The youngest son, a kind man who had always put his father and brothers before himself, was left nothing but his father's cat. "What will become of me?" said the young miller's son with a sigh, looking at his cat. "Buy me a fine pair of boots, and I will help you make your fortune, for your father thought you deserved it," replied the cat. A talking cat! The miller's son could not believe his ears. So the miller's son bought the cat a fine pair of boots, and the 2 of them set off to seek their fortune. After a while they came to a grand palace. "Wouldn't it be wonderful to live so grandly?" said the miller's son. Later, while the miller's son was sleeping, the cat went hunting and caught a rabbit. He put it in a sack and took it to the palace. "A gift to the king from my master, the Marquis of Carabas," said the cat, presenting it to the king. The cat went back to the miller's son and told him what he had done. "Now the king will want to know who the Marquis of Carabas was, or is," laughed the cat. A clever cat! The miller's son could not believe his ears. Every day for a week the cat delivered a gift to the king, each time saying it was from the Marquis of Carabas. After a while, the king became very curious and decided he'd like his daughter to meet the mysterious nobleman, whoever he might be. When the cat heard that the king and his daughter were on their way, he wasted no time. You must take off all your clothes and stand in the river," the cat told his master. The puzzled miller's son did as he was told, and the cat hid his master's tattered old clothes behind a rock. When the cat heard the king's carriage approaching, he jumped onto the road and begged for help. "Your gracious majesty," said the cat, "my master was robbed of all his clothes while he was bathing in the river." The king gave the miller's son a suit of fine clothes to wear. "Please join us in the carriage," said the king. So the cat opened the door, and the miller's son climbed in. He looked very handsome in his new suit. The king's daughter fell in love with him at once. The cat ran ahead, cutting through the surrounding countryside. Every time he met people working in the fields, he told them, "If the king stops to ask who owns this land, you must tell him it belongs to Marquis of Carabas." Beyond the fields, the cat reached a grand castle. He spoke to the people working in a field next to it and discovered that it belonged to a fierce ogre. The cat stood bravely in his boots and knocked on the castle door. "Who dares to disturb me?" roared a voice from inside the castle. "I have heard that you are a very clever ogre," called the cat. "I have come to see what tricks you can do." The ogre opened the door and immediately changed himself into a great snarling lion. The cat felt scared, and he didn't show it. "This is quite a clever trick," said the cat, "but a lion is a very large creature. I think it would be a much better trick to change into something very small, like a mouse." The ogre liked to show off his tricks. He changed at once into a little mouse. The cat pounced on the mouse and ate him up. Then the cat went into the castle and told all of the servants that their new master was the Marquis of Carabas. They were glad to be rid of the fierce ogre, so they did not complain. "The king is on his way to visit, and you must prepare a grand feast to welcome him," said the cat. When the king's carriage arrived at the castle, the cat was waiting to welcome him. "Your gracious majesty," he purred, "welcome to the home of my master, the Marquis of Carabas." A cunning cat! The miller's son could not believe his eyes. "You must ask for the princess's hand in marriage," whispered the cunning cat to his master. The miller's son did as he was told. The king, who was impressed by everything he saw, agreed. Soon the Marquis of Carabas and his wife were married, and they lived a very happy life together. The cat was made a lord of their court and was given the most splendid clothes, which he wore proudly along with those fine boots that the miller's son had bought him. The end. All right, friends. Thanks for coming to my 5-minute stories. I'm going to have more for you this coming week. See you soon.